All right, Richie, let's talk about this a little bit. Just big picture. What is what does Mike Norvell have to does doing anything immediately like help him? Does doing anything immediately help the season? Does doing anything immediately help like the favor of fans that are, supposed to be supporting him? I actually just saw that as we were doing this podcast, Purdue just fired their offensive coordinator. They're just like we are. Actually, they're a game less than we are because they didn't get the week 0 game. They're 4 games into their season. They're a third of their season, Richie, and Purdue just fired their OC. And I don't necessarily know that firing somebody right now makes the team any better, but I do think that it helps you from a perception standpoint. And I'll just say this. I think Mike Norvell should fire at least 2 coaches before the bye week to help with perception, to say like, yep, changes are coming. We're going to start doing it now. We're not cutting it. We're not coaching these guys well enough. We're not preparing them well enough. We're going to find some assistants or whoever that can. Does it really help? Is it going to be a wins and losses thing? No, I don't think so. I don't think that there's somebody that can do a better job than who's doing a certain job right now. But do I think that it would help cool the seat on Mike Norvell a little bit? I do think it would. I do think there'd be some fans that say, okay, well, the season's a loss, it's a wash, but at least he's making changes. I don't know. Agree with that? Disagree with that? Where are you at on that?
I think it's a risk-reward scenario. What does that do to the locker room? Because these players do have close connections with these coaches. I think the easiest move is get rid of Randy Shannon right now and elevate Ernie Sims, at least on an interim basis to see how he does. Firing a coordinator mid-season, again, it's risk reward. It would do you favors with the fan base and the boosters and the supporters because it says you're serious, and maybe, just maybe, it sends a message to the team that says, hey guys, what we're doing this season, what we've done through 5 games is not okay, and there will be consequences to that. And it's not just the coaches that need to worry about their jobs. It's you guys. These scholarships are not renewable. When we have these exit interviews in December, some of these players are going to be told you need to take it on down the road, hit the portal. And I do think Mike will do that. I don't know if he's going to fire anybody in season. I have a hard time believing that he will, but I do think it would serve him well if he were to do that, just to send a message to the rest of the coaches on the staff who don't get fired, to the team that this is unacceptable, and to the fan base. I think about, I forget what year it was, but Notre Dame had been pretty good under Brian Kelly, and then they went 4-8. And what did Brian Kelly do immediately after the season? He fired both his coordinators, and he went to the media and said, this is not good enough. This season can never happen again at Notre Dame, as long as I'm here. That's the type of moment that Mike Norvell needs. Some heads need to roll. When the job is not done, you have to go to your team. If my team is not performing, as the director of my department, I need to, and I have, let managers go and say, listen, we're not performing the way we need to do it. And because if you will just tolerate it and allow mediocrity, eventually it's your job that's going to be out. And I'm not losing my job. I got a mortgage today. Mike Norvell, he's probably set for life at this point now. So he's probably not too concerned about that. But if he wants to turn this program around, he needs to have that Brian Kelly mentality of, all right, both coordinators, you're gone. We went 4-8 this year. Clearly, it ain't working. And he's turned around the next year, won 10 or 11 games, I think. It can be done. It's not easy. I'm not sure Mike can do it. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I did a video on that specifically. Michigan did something similar, right? They went 2-4 during the COVID year. And I forget the percentages, but either Harbaugh fired 60% of his staff and Kelly did 40% of his, or Kelly did 60% of his and Harbaugh did 40% of his. I think it was 60% for Harbaugh. Harbaugh even moved his brother to a new role. Like said, you're not cutting it. Like you're going to coach special teams or whatever. Like he moved Harbaugh was cold-blooded. And guess what they did? They won 10 games and won a national championship the next year, right? Like, so they, And so again, now I don't necessarily, and Brian Kelly, same thing. They changed that staff around and they never won 10 games, less than 10 games when he was there as well. They won one less under Freeman. But while he was there, they won 10 the rest of the way. I don't think that Florida State would do that. I'll just be very fair. I don't think that they would win. I don't think that by bringing in new coordinators, they're going to win 10 plus going forward. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a, no pun intended, climb to get back there. But I think there is some advantage to doing it now. I think, it is risk reward. You're right about that. When you first said that, I was like, what are you risking? You're not, like a loss, but you are, there are some guys in there, but players understand that too, and I will say, like, to play devil's advocate to that, every other good program, because we did think that this was a pretty good program last year. Every other good program did lose coaches last year from their staff. We were the only one that, returned an entire staff, which again should have been pretty damning at the moment that nobody wanted any of our staff. And so coaches do, come and go pretty often. And so like, that is just like kind of a fact of life. And so these guys get it, like that it's a business. They're going to get benched too if they don't perform. And it's Mike Norvell's job to kind of keep that locker room. Yeah, I don't think you clean house right now. I do think that you should pretty seriously consider I don't know. To me, like I think I'd probably go DC at this point. I'd make a switch at DC. The problem with that is that the co-DC is Randy, the one that you mentioned, and so not to pile on Mike Norvell at this moment, but for those two to be in charge of your defense, it probably speaks to why your defense is so bad right now. I don't know. I don't think that's the only change that could potentially be made. I do think, as much as we've talked about DJ, DJ's hurt right now. Like, DJ's not playing. I was told this weeks ago and told to kind of keep it under my, don't say anything, not confirmed, but it seems like he's banged up. Well, you saw the knee brace and, he's been wearing that in practice for a long time. And I know they're not, certain people, you can't say this or that if you go to practice, whatever. He's banged up, man. Like, he's slower than he's ever been. He's slower than absolute molasses. He is absolutely just, a detriment to this team. And I'm telling you, Brock's not going to get in there and do any better. And that's not me being negative about Brock, but it ain't going to be any better. But at least you're probably a little bit less frustrated. You're a little bit more mobile. Maybe Mike Norvell calls plays a little bit better. I think it's time to retire that. Like, I don't think DJ deserves all the blame. I actually thought he was better last night than he has been. Like, the Morlock thing wasn't his fault. Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown was, the other interception that was thrown to was a great play by the defender. So I didn't think DJ was terrible last night, but it just needs to be done. You need to move on. You need to play a lot of younger guys. It's not just DJ to me, but you need to kind of like go to the youth movement overall. Like, these guys that are not putting effort forward, I don't care. Florida State's going to get blown out a lot the second half of this year, and so who cares? Just play younger guys, play guys that are going to get reps for next year, and move on. Like, it is just completely pointless to me to continue to play Uyunglele. I know Mike probably wants him to play against Clemson, and I know Mike's probably going to play him against Clemson, but I don't necessarily think he should. He's hurt. He's banged up. He's if you ever thought that there could be a spark on this team, it would be putting somebody else in. Again, I don't think it's going to do anything, but I do think that it'd probably be worth it to just make the switch now. Get right back to the video, but first, let me give a little love to our friends over at Lucy. Now, I was out of town this weekend, and I used the Lucy product, the pouches, basically all weekend. I used it on my drive from Nashville down to Tuscaloosa. I used it while I was at a frat party on Saturday before the game because I wasn't drinking anything and everybody else was. So Lucy took a little bit of edge off and got me ready for the game. The flavors are really good. They're not for everybody, but as somebody who dipped tobacco in the past when I was younger, these are absolutely great. They're tobacco free. They're not owned by Big Tobacco. I like the mint flavor. It lasts so much longer than other similar products that I've used in the past. It's also a little milder, so it doesn't just light you on fire. If you want to level up your nicotine game, go to lucy.co/DFNS. Use our code, that is DFNS, to get 20% off your first order. Lucy also offers free shipping. They have a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co. code DFNS for 20% off. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Appreciate Lucy for their support.
Yeah, and I honestly, Mike, he wants to win games. It's not like he's trying to sabotage the season or anything like that. If he thought Brock or Luke was the better option, he probably would have gone with him by now. But he probably in the back of his mind says, this thing just isn't working, and I don't want to ruin these guys while they're so young. But again, it's a message to the fan base, to the donors, and the donors, the boosters. They are the lifeblood of any football program in the country that wants to compete for national championship. It would send a message to them. I think people would be happy. I personally, as a fan, I'd rather see us lose with Brock or Luke than lose with DJ, because we've seen what DJ is. And the frustrating part, you mentioned it. We've all kind of seen it. If you've been watching and paying any attention to the games, DJ is not 100%. Why the hell are you running two quarterback draws or quarterback powers back to back right by the end zone? Like, knowing that, it makes no sense.
And then getting offended and defending it, and Ira asked about it, and he got all pissed off at Ira. I thought it was a fair question, and he defended. He's like, no, to me, that's concerning a little bit. Like, he was like, no, that was those were good calls, and we just didn't execute. And I'm like, nah, dog, those were bad calls. Everybody we all know those were bad calls. Like, don't get mad at Ira for asking you a question, a very legitimate question. People like to get on the media, Richie, and say oh, these medias just ask easy questions. Like, that was a good question. Mike just dodges them all. And so anyway, I shout out to Ira for asking a good question. But
it felt like almost 2017 Jimbo vibes. If you watch the press conferences, they were uncomfortable. And if you talk to anyone like Corey or Ira or Jeff Cameron, any of those guys who were in all those press conferences, they said it was just miserable and uncomfortable because Jimbo was so combative. And for Mike to be doing that, what are we, 9 months after going 13-0? Like, that's not a good sign
at all.
Again, I'm not saying he can't turn this around, but he's got a lot of work to do, and probably more than he realizes. But going back to the youth movement topic, I think DJ, honestly, at this point, you're not going to beat Clemson either way. Let DJ have this game, right? Maybe he'll find some magic and have a good game, and we'll have a chance late. I don't think that will happen. I think it gets ugly. But let DJ have this game, and then you need to go to Brock or Luke at this point. And what's frustrating? I was watching Game Day, and I typically don't watch it, but we're in bed. We put the bed up with the frame, and who's getting a ton of love on Game Day like multiple times is Luke Altmaier, who was once committed to Florida State, and you're just hearing all about him and how well he's doing at Illinois right now. And it's just frustrating because Mike has not done a great job with quarterback recruiting and development thus far. That could change. And Brock, I still think Brock could be a good quarterback. He won't be this year, especially in this offense with the way things are going, but you need to make a change there. Like I said, let DJ play this game against Clemson. Even if you beat Clemson, again, Brock's not going to give you a better chance, neither would Luke, but you're not going to beat Clemson regardless. So let him have this game. And then I think you need to sit down with him and have a conversation and say, listen, appreciate you coming here. Things just did not work out. We're going to move forward at this point with one of the younger guys. You may have an opportunity if someone goes down later in the season, but there needs to be, when you're a leader, you have to have very tough, sometimes, conversations, and you cannot sugarcoat it. You have to be very straight up. When I'm having an issue with an employee, I'm very direct, and that's what Mike needs to do with DJ, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's beyond the point of return. I'm sure Mike feels loyal because he knows that this is when he benches him, it is the end of DJ's career, and I'm sure he feels bad about that. But at the end of the day, it's too much. Like, it's just, it did, like you said, it didn't work out, man. We tried. He's banged up. Let's move on. I also think, Richie, if you're Mike Norvell, I don't think you should do it just to prove everybody wrong. But like, if you just want to prove everybody wrong, like put Brock out there. Put Brock out there and let him throw 5 interceptions. And then you can say, see, guys, I kind of knew what I was talking about. Like, I know DJ's a pain in the butt to watch, but I knew what I was doing, right? Like, and I know Mike wouldn't get in a press conference and say that, but that's what we would get on here and say, well, maybe Mike Norvell knew what he was doing by starting DJ. That it was frustrating, but DJ wasn't, like the main thing. So anyway, things Mike Norvell could do right now. Again, I do think he should potentially look at moving on from a coach or two. I do think you go youth movement, including quarterback. So